Okay, so we're going to be talking about the different stages and challenges and even strategies for the different stages of the business life cycle. So what we're going to do is be talking about each one of these to begin with, and then we'll talk about some of the potential possibilities that we may end up with at a later stage. So we start off with the establishment stage. We get a lot of, obviously businesses start off here, and we have a lot of problems where a lot of businesses launch straight in, not much research, not sure if they're going to sell, but the owners are really keen and really happy, just want to give it a go. A lot of entrepreneurial ideas without necessarily seeing if there is a market for it. So customers will be unfamiliar with the product. You'll see them, retailers are unwilling to take on the product because if the business is going to die in a couple of months, then why go for it? There's a lot of time to establish a product. This is why you'll see lots and lots of different businesses out there that are starting off will do things or give things away for free. Expenses tend to be really high. Now, a reason for this over here is that you have economies of scale. So when you're going to a manufacturer in China or Taiwan or wherever, if you buy more of it, you tend to get an average price that is cheaper than if you only bought 10 or 12. So you have a lot of factories that will say minimum spend will be 10,000 units. Whereas if you're small time, you're just starting off, you're not going to be buying 10,000 pairs of, say, socks to sell. You might only want to buy 100 just to see if it works. And if it doesn't, well, you might be all the way up here and your business might be over before it has started, which brings you to here. You lose money very early on in the early stage, which is why a lot of businesses just do not last. So some strategies that could be really useful. Having adequate savings, getting adequate marketing and pricing strategies ready for the business. So know what you're going to be selling it at, know how much your break-even analysis is. They're all really important. And one that a lot of people don't do, but lucky you're in business study, is to do some courses. Actually learn about how to run a business. Learn how to do some home accounting so you don't need to hire someone to do that for you. And even research. You never know. With the government, you might have some regulations that you need to take hold of. You might even be able to be eligible for a grant where the government will pay for some of it because you might be doing something in, say, renewable energy technology, or computer science. And the government is quite big on those at the moment. So moving up, we start going towards the growth stage. So you get to be quite a rapid increase in sales. There tends to be quite a significant amount of pressure for those sales to be really high, so you can cover your costs, because remember, your costs still are quite high. And this is where you can lead to a lot of cash problems. So you'll find that a lot of businesses, because of the momentum of getting out of the establishment phase, will go, okay, we need to buy lots and lots of product, but they still don't have significant sales yet. So you're in this awkward situation where you tend to have a lot of stock, but you're still not quite the same level of sales. So you end up having a lot of inventory. So high levels of inventory followed by mediocre sales, which would only be doing that instead of you want them to be shooting up, is one of the challenges that you need to be quite familiar with and know what to do about it. So what can we do? We can go down and we can, it's not that helpful, but work harder. What is a better idea is to develop an effective credit policy. Now what that means is, if you're collecting money, if you're starting up an accounting business from home, people don't like paying the tax man. Understandable, no one likes paying tax. So quite frequently, your accountant will be the very last person to get paid. So develop an effective credit policy. When should people pay you? If you only accept checks, well, you're going to be waiting a long time to get paid. So this is where the influence of newer technologies like PayPal or converting your smartphone into an EFTPOS machine or even just having an EFTPOS machine at home so people can pay via their credit card is a really useful idea. There is also a method here called factoring. There are companies out there that will take on your debt. That is, if a client owes you $1,000, they will pay you $800 and they will take on the debt. You don't have to worry about it. You've got your $800 and they'll go pursue that client that owes you the $1,000 and they will try to get the $1,000 off them. And you don't have to worry about it. It just cost you that $200 that you missed out on, though, 20%. And different factoring businesses have different amounts that they would charge. So that can be quite useful. And this is an appropriate time to start thinking about professional managers. So you're on your own, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing really well for yourself, but you might actually need to hire a professional, someone that really knows what they're doing. And that's when you can start to get into this nice maturity phase. And this is where we start to see Apple and the iPad starting to hang out. So sales start leveling off, what we call a saturation point. That means, I know you're just thinking, yeah, water, awesome. No, this is where, or better yet, water. This is we're at a point where lots of people have lots of your product. And we've seen that, and this is where we start to get into a cannibalization, eating each other. So the iPad and the iPhone are so big that people can't really tell the difference between them. In fact, the iPhone 6 Plus has a bit of a joke of a nickname called the iPad Nano. So people have gone, my phone's too big to warrant a tablet device now. What do I do? And people are just sticking with their phones because the phone can do so much more than the iPad can. So some strategies that will be useful there. This is where you start looking at cost cutting. People hate this. It has a huge negative press about it, but you really need to be able to cut down your costs. And that could mean changing suppliers. It could mean, it could mean changing the different pieces or processes in the manufacturing of your product. And this is where you can see where cafes, if you go out to breakfast on the weekend and suddenly the menu has changed and you go, oh, the ingredients just don't taste the way they used to, or the coffee's not as good, it's because they've changed something, most likely because they're getting a decreased price and they're able to therefore have a higher profit margin. What we also do is we start seeing other businesses go, well, this is where we need new products. And this is what we can call innovation or line extensions. So line extensions are when someone like Lynx, they've got lots and lots and lots of different scents out there. What they really do is they do deodorants, and they launch new deodorants quite regularly, new scents or new flavors, as they can sometimes refer to. And what they've recently done is start to get into the hair market. So they now have hairspray. They now have other hair styling products out there which trade on the Lynx brand name, because Lynx are the #2 deodorant brand in Australia. Funnily enough, they fall right behind, if you can guess it, Rexona. Both brands are owned by the manufacturer Unilever, so they're quite happy with the way things are going there. So the target market, just so you know, we'll talk about it much, much later, is young men, teenagers, and young adults for Lynx, and Rexona is when you grow up to be a big person and you finally have to start acting like it. And that's one of the things. Then you start getting into this area, and this is where we're going to spend a little bit more time talking. So you've got a couple of different options when you get into the steady state. So you tend to have falling sales. You tend to start losing market share, and just as in the same way that the growth stage had cash flow problems, you start having cash flow problems because your sales are going down and you still have high costs. So what can you do? Well, there's a few different things. You can improve the competitive position through more cost cutting. And you'll often hear big established businesses like Qantas, Telstra, they start cost cutting through making people redundant. So having less people do the same amount of work. You might get new products altogether. Remember when Facebook became uncool? It's still uncool. They bought different apps like Instagram, Snapchat, and tons of other ones. They've even started to diversify themselves into virtual reality. So you can now get a VR headset, I think it's called the Oculus, by Facebook. So they're doing that to stay relevant. Quite often they'll also look at getting new managers, new ideas for how to come up with new products or line extensions or innovation, how to do something different to make the business more profitable. And while doing this, it needs to be done effectively and ethically. Otherwise, you will get very bad press, and that will only accelerate the rate at which your business starts declining.